Every Christmas had its own feeling. The catalogs, the commercials, the conversations at school, and that one toy we kept thinking about. We imagined opening it, holding it, and picturing ourselves finally playing with it. In this video, we're looking back at the most popular toys from the 1980s and 1990s, the ones that topped wish lists and defined Christmas mornings. For many families, this wasn't just another gift, it was a big moment. Kids circled it in catalogs, parents talked about it for weeks, and everything changed when it finally showed up at Christmas. When the Nintendo Entertainment System reached American homes in the mid-80s, it brought video games back into the living room. We took turns, argued about whose turn was next, and learned patience fast. When Super Nintendo arrived later, it felt like the next chapter of the same story. G.I. Joe was never about one figure. It was about missions. Originally created by Hasbro as a military action figure, it quickly grew into a full world of vehicles, bases, and squads. The floor turned into a battlefield, with everything spread out and carefully placed. Some kids lined figures up with precision. Others jumped straight into action. More often than not, everything stayed on the floor until someone complained about stepping on it. In 1974, a Hungarian toy designer named Erno Rubik created a three-dimensional puzzle called the Magic Cube. Not long after, it landed in the hands of the Ideal Toy Company, who renamed it the Rubik's Cube. By 1980, it had become one of the biggest toys in America. Kids everywhere wanted one, especially around Christmas, and many homes ended up with a cube sitting on the table, twisted in every direction, waiting for someone to finally solve it. For a lot of boys, action figures were at the top of the Christmas list. In the early 80s, He-Man stood out right away. Introduced in 1981, these figures were noticeably bigger and more muscular than G.I. Joe and even Star Wars figures on the shelf. The sword, the armor, the bold look, everything felt larger than life. But the real prize was Castle Grayskull.
An unusual thing happened recently. Some Cabbage Patch Kids were born with beautiful corn silk hair.
Cabbage Patch Kids first appeared in the early 1980s, and it didn't take long before finding one became a challenge. Each doll came with adoption papers, which made it feel more personal than most toys on the shelf. Parents searched multiple stores, hoping to get lucky. If you were holding one on Christmas, your parents definitely had an interesting story about buying it. The Sega Genesis arrived in the United States in 1989, released by Sega of Japan as a faster alternative to what most kids already knew. Sonic racing across the screen made everything feel quicker and more aggressive by comparison. During the holiday season, arguments broke out over which system was better. Some families went with Nintendo, others chose Sega, and that decision usually stuck. Once a console showed up in the house, it defined what games everyone was playing. Transformers really took off in 1984 when Hasbro introduced them, and they quickly became one of the most wanted toys that Christmas. Based on Japanese transforming designs, these figures could shift from robots into cars and other vehicles. The toys were backed by comic books that gave everything a bigger story, but for most of us, it came down to the transformation itself. Getting it right took patience. My Little Pony brought a different kind of excitement. When the toys hit stores in 1982, they became so popular that they seriously challenged Barbie during the holiday season. Each pony had its own colors, name, and small symbol, which made picking a favorite feel important. The hair got brushed, tangled, brushed again, and sometimes cut when no one was looking. Teddy Ruxpin wasn't a toy you rushed into playing with. Released in the mid-80s, he was one of the first toys to use cassette tapes to tell stories. First, the tape went in. Then, the button got pressed, and everyone waited for him to start talking.
Hi, my name is Teddy Ruxpin. Can you and I be friends?
Troll dolls were strange, colorful, and impossible to miss. With their wild hair sticking straight up, they stood out the moment you saw one. The original trolls were created by Danish woodcarver Thomas Dam, and for years he insisted they were good luck charms, not just toys. By the late 80s, plastic versions made a huge comeback, and around Christmas they suddenly seemed to be everywhere.
Be careful with it.
Getting a Game Boy for Christmas meant games no longer stayed in the living room. Released by Nintendo in 1989, it was one of the first handheld systems that really worked anywhere. We took it on car rides, to relatives' houses, and anywhere we had to wait. It didn't matter where you were. If you had a Game Boy with you, you had something to do. Star Wars action figures kept the movies going long after the VHS was put away. Originally released by Kenner in the late 70s, the figures were small enough to collect, but detailed enough to recognize instantly. We lined them up, recreated scenes, and made up new ones when the tape wasn't playing. Around Christmas, adding a few new characters felt like expanding the universe. When the Ninja Turtles hit, it felt like they took over everything at once. After the animated series launched in 1987, the characters exploded in popularity almost overnight. Toys, cartoons, and movies. Suddenly, they were everywhere. Everyone had a favorite turtle, and arguments about which one was best were taken seriously. Lego was never about opening a box and being done. We wanted Lego because it meant time. Time to build, take things apart, and start over. Pieces got mixed together. Instructions were followed for a while, then ignored completely. Sometimes nothing matched the picture, and that was fine. What mattered was having a pile of bricks and deciding for ourselves what they were going to become. At first, Beanie Babies didn't seem like much. They didn't light up, talk, or move. What caught attention were the names, the tags, and the small details that made each one feel slightly different. Before long, these small plush toys were being treated very differently than anything else on the shelf. Tickle Me Elmo was built around one simple idea: press the button and it reacted. Released by Tyco Toys in partnership with Sesame Street, the toy didn't try to do much more than that. The laugh came instantly, and people pressed it again just to hear the same sound.
When your child tickles him, he talks, laughs, and his whole body shakes.
During the holiday season, it rarely stayed untouched. Furby came out in 1998 and immediately stood out from most toys. It talked in its own language, reacted to sounds, and kept making noises when you least expected it. During the holiday season, they sold fast and ended up in homes all over the country. What made Furby even more unusual was the reaction around it. At one point, there were real concerns about whether it could record conversations, enough that it was banned from certain government buildings. Pokémon started as a Game Boy game in the mid-90s, then quickly spread into TV shows, toys, and movies. But nothing hit quite like the trading cards. When the cards arrived in 1999, collecting took over fast. Around the holidays, Pokémon cards were high on a lot of wish lists, and opening a fresh pack usually meant stopping everything to see what was inside. The Talkboy became famous almost overnight after showing up in Home Alone. Recording your voice and changing how it sounded made every kid feel clever. Messages were recorded, played back, slowed down, and sped up until everyone laughed. It didn't take long before bedrooms turned into recording studios. The Super Soaker didn't start as a toy idea at all. It was developed by NASA engineer Lonnie Johnson while he was working on a different project, using water pressure instead of chemicals. His first prototype was homemade, built from PVC pipe and an empty soda bottle. By 1993, the Super Soaker became the hottest toy of the year. Getting one around Christmas meant counting the days until summer, knowing water fights were about to change for good. So, which of these toys do you remember the most? Maybe there's one I didn't mention, or one that brings back a very specific memory. Feel free to share it in the comments. And as always, thanks for watching and taking this trip back with me.